Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm your host, Todd Nesloni, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership at TEPSA. And each episode, I look to bring you a different guest who has encouraged, inspired, or challenged me in one way or another and bring them on to share some of their stories in hopes that it encourages you to share some of yours. I'm thrilled this episode to have my friend and former colleague, Jerry Williams, on with me. Jerry, tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
Hi, I am Jerry Williams, well known as Jerry Williams, actually Geraldine Williams, but nobody ever calls me that. Um, I I have three beautiful girls. I am a teacher presently at Hempstead Elementary. I've been in education teaching 20 years and an IA or substitute for 10 plus more, so over 30 years of education.
I love that. Well, Jerry, every time I have an educator on, I always kind of ask, I feel like everybody's got two paths to becoming a teacher. Some knew at a young age that was what they were meant to do, and others were kind of like, nope, I did not expect it, and here I am and loving it. So where did you fall? How did you know that teaching was in your path?
Well, I didn't know from the jump, that's for sure. I wanted to be an electrical engineer.
Really?
Yes. My 10th grade year, I took a class in geometry and hated it. And I knew then, since engineering was mostly math, that was not going to be the case. And so I ended up getting out of school and working jobs to help mom take care of my siblings, and got to where I was tired of doing fast food and working in department stores. And I had a cousin that worked for Aldine, and she said that she could get me on as an IA. So I did that, and I've been in education ever since.
I love that. So, you said you served 10 years as an instructional aide and a substitute?
Mm-hmm.
And so when of those 10 years did you decide, you know what? I want to go back to school and get a degree in this and be a teacher?
I actually didn't decide on my own. I was working as an aide, and I was doing pretty much in some cases what the teachers would do. I mean, I worked with teachers that were not pulling the lessons for. In fact, those years are all sped except for about 3 years.
Oh.
And so I was actually planning lessons for the groups that I was working with. And I had a principal in Aldine that saw what I was doing in the classroom and asked me to go with her when she opened up another school. And I was still doing that. And it wasn't until after I got married, my husband said, if this is what you want to do, there's really not a lot of money in doing it as an aide. You should go to school and get your degree and then teach. And so that's kind of how I did that.
I love that. Well, do you find yourself now as a teacher having a whole different kind of respect and viewpoint of what our instructional aides do as opposed to some other teachers who may not have had that experience?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first, they make a little bit more than what we did. In fact, when I was an IA, I drove school bus too because the money for an IA wasn't enough.
Right.
But yes, it definitely helps me to understand from their viewpoint the work that they put in and how valuable they are to the school, to classroom teachers, and to everyone that's involved in the school. They take on so many different jobs, along with just being assigned to a classroom or being pulled here or there to fill in, and to do all of that and not receive really what they're due, right. It gives me much respect for them.
Well, what I've always loved about you, Jerry, is you're such a learner. Like, you don't love being pushed outside your comfort zone like many of us do not love. But when you do, you're like, you know what? Now that I'm here, I'm going to learn and do the best I can. Because, I remember when there was a little shift in teachers that we needed, and you went from being this reading teacher who just loved reading so much. It was your joy, it was your passion, and then you were like, I'm going to take this leap of faith and I'm going to teach math. and you did phenomenal at it. And so how do you kind of work through those moments where you're like, I don't want this change, but I'm going to learn everything, and then you still you do great because you get to that point where you're just learning so much.
Oh my. I kicked, scream, and hollered when you wanted me to change over to math. I was just like, I don't care what grade you put me in, fourth, third, fifth, I don't care. I don't want to do math. And it really pushed me, of course, outside. And it makes you, for me as an individual, I've never wanted to settle for just doing it. I wanted to be the best that I could at it. And so I think it's been 5-6 years now that I've taught math, and I still feel that I'm growing so much, but I feel like I've learned so much from what I've done. And every year, I constantly pray and ask God, please give me what I need, because math is not my strongest area. Give me what I need to help the kids get it. And believe it or not, he does, in either through a song or a chant, or he gives me a way to do it that's not there where the kids are able to grasp it. So it just pushes me to be, my goal now is just to be as good as I thought I was as a reading teacher, to be that much better as a math teacher.
Well, you've been in this field of education for a couple decades now, and by now people think that when you do something for so long, you just become so entrenched in knowing that you know your stuff. And so one thing that I talk quite often about on Tell Your Story is that idea of doubt, though, and how doubt still can creep in and still make you feel like you're not doing enough, you don't do it right, somebody does it better. And so even though you have tons of experience in this field, how do you still keep doubt at bay and not let it overtake you? Because I'm sure you still deal with it as well.
Absolutely. When you see people, especially that have done math for so long, and and you see all the different things that they're pulling in, and you're going, oh my God, I didn't think of that. And oh my, are my kids gonna get what they're getting, or that, am I gonna give it to them, or am I, you go through that. I think the thing that makes me push past it is just to believe in myself and know that I am a good teacher, right, and that maybe I may have to work a little harder, in this content to make them get it. But by Job, I'm going to do what it takes. And, if it means me staying up, extra hours, if it means me going up on a Saturday or a Sunday, whatever it takes, I'm going to do what I can to best get the points across to my kids.
Well, and I know that for you personally, your faith also plays a really big role in your life and who you are and how you hold on to things. And so my question first is, was faith always a heavy part of your life, or was it something that you grew into as a young adult, or how did that happen for you?
No, faith has always been there. From the time that I could walk, my dad would take me with him in the choir stand or the choir loft when he would sing. And just growing up after my parents divorced, it was that way with both parents. So it didn't matter which household I was in. We were still expected to go to the church and to participate. And even if my mom didn't take me, my grandma took me. It was, you were going to do this, you're going to do that. And so when you grow up in that atmosphere, you learn that becomes a part of you. If you're real about it, it becomes a part of you and who you are. And so in everything I try, of course, none of us are perfect, but in everything I try to put God first in it. And I depend on him to lead me and guide me in everything, as far as how to teach my kids, right, how to reach my kids, those kids that are difficult. You really have to pull on that faith then, and I tend to be one that will get the ones that need a whole lot of faith to deal with them.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I love I've always loved hearing you speak about it. But one thing that I love you just share is your father taking you into the choir box and all that other kind of stuff, because you also are a beautiful singer. And I love when you share that during different programs or even in your classroom and the songs and things. And so when did you realize that you had a voice that you felt comfortable sharing it with others?
It kind of goes along with being made to do. My grandma, when I was in third grade, she made me take piano lessons, and I wasn't real good at it, but when we would go to church, my grandma would say, okay, put my granddaughter on program and she's going to play this song. And you go, oh my God, Granny, really? And you dare not say, Granny, I don't want to do it. And so you got up there in the front of your peers and everyone else and you stumbled over it. But it was not a question of, would you do it? It was, you're going to do it. And so at an early age, I was put in the front of people, in the front of church. You always had to say a speech, or I always had to sing a song, or I always had to do something on the program. And so for that, getting in the front of people was somewhat calming, but it's still nervous. Anytime I would have to sing, anytime now that I have to sing or do something in the front, I'm just as nervous as I'll get out until I get into it, and I focus. But that has always helped me as far as being in the front of people. When we did the plays and when we did the different things at Webb, that was something that God has gifted me with. And it just comes natural to use.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I'm so glad that you feel comfortable sharing your gift, because I just love anytime we got to hear you use it. Well, I know that you also have a couple of daughters, and you always have been, since I've known you, this extremely proud mother, always bragging about your kids, always telling everybody how much you love them, all the great things they were doing. And, you've been such an involved and supportive mother that one of your daughters now is actually a senior in high school. And, we're now going through this quarantine period, this COVID-19, this unexpected and not knowing yet how the school year is going to end and wrap up here in Texas. And so talk to me a little bit about what that's been like, not only for you as a mother, but also kind of what you've seen her go through.
It's been kind of rough, and you have to kind of stay strong for her. She's had a rough time dealing with it, and she's tried hard not to show that. But just the other day, she really cried and was very disappointed. And so my heart goes out to her. I can't say I know how she feels in that exact moment, because I don't. In fact, none of us, I don't know anybody that's had to not have their last, their senior year of school. We've been out for tornadoes or hurricanes or something for a couple of weeks, but this, we don't even know if really they're going to go back. And that saddens me, because every kid lives for that moment. If you've been in school 12 years, you want that day to cross the stage and show how proud you are to do that. And so what I just shared with her is that, this is not anything that was man-made that I know of. We didn't have this come on. It's not something that we have control over. Right. And so we have to trust God that it's going to work out, the way it should. Now, that doesn't make her feel good as a kid, because, I want to graduate, Mom. I want to get my diploma. I want, and she got over the prom thing, the senior trip thing, not so much. And so my whole family, my church family, we've all just said, regardless, Alyssa, of what doesn't happen, we will make sure you're celebrated. And I told her just the other day, I think it was yesterday, I said, if we have to make your own graduation ceremony, we will have a stage just for you, and we will have your family and friends all in the audience, and we'll announce your name. The good thing will be is that we won't have to wait till the W's. You'll be the one in right. So I mean, look, it's going to be all on you. And she goes, but Mom, it won't be the same. It's okay. We're going to celebrate,
Well, and the one positive, I think, at least throughout all this, is that the whole country is kind of experiencing the same thing. So I feel like you're going to see a lot of new kinds of graduations and celebrations and things like that, because these kids don't want to miss those things, and it may not look the same, but I think these school districts are going to rise up and say, you know what, we couldn't do it on this day, but we're going to make something happen in this form or fashion. And so, as a mother, I'm sure it's also been a little bit difficult on you to watch her go through that, but also to know that there's not really anything you can do to fix it for her. So how do you maintain the strength to be strong in front of her, even though I'm sure many times you want to cry because it's your baby and you want to have the graduation too as the mom?
Yes, did cry with her, honestly. you know, I depend on my family, the people that we love. Alyssa is a real special kid. She
Mhm.
works in the church faithfully. I mean, she doesn't have a choice. Uh, and because she does, she participates. You know, we worked with the MLK program, so she's there because the kids go wherever, you know, I go, and so she's volunteered and she does. She sings as well, and you know, and so I depend on all of those people, you know, to be supportive to her, to be strong for me when I can't. My other daughter that's here with me, um, is supportive as well, you know, and we all just tell her, you know, we love you, you know, and there has to be a reason and a plan behind it. Will we understand it all right now? Maybe not. But because we do trust God and we do believe, you know, I just believe He's going to work it out. There's going to be good that comes out of it. And it has to, you know, whether it's good that we like or not, you know, and so we just support and rally around each other and constantly tell her that it doesn't take away from what she's done
Right.
in school. It doesn't take away from all the accomplishments that she's made in one act in choir. Nothing can take away from that. We will just celebrate it one way or the other. Maybe not normally, but it'll be celebrated.
That's right. And I think, you know, with our kids across the country, that's the best thing we can do right now is just to be encouraging, to let them. I think I love that you said you've cried with her because I think that's so important for kids to see that their parents are emotional along with them instead of just like, get over it. It's not that big of a deal. It's like to some kids, this is a really big deal. And so I love that. Well, you know, Jerry,
Yep.
when you reflect on your life's path and everything you've been through, there's been highs, there's been lows, there's been everything in between. You know, I know there's probably lots of examples you could think of, but when you reflect back, what's one instance that you think that was really instrumental in creating the woman we see today?
Hmm. Um, I would say just being able to pull on my faith, and I would go back to I had a son back in 2000 before Alyssa was born, and I was told at 18 weeks that the baby wasn't going to live.
Mhm.
However, the baby was breathing still inside of me, and I opted to carry the baby full term, despite the doctor saying that I should abort the baby.
Right.
And having to go through that, um, being told what the doctor says on one side and what your
Mhm.
faith believes,
Mhm.
um, believing that God could speak and everything would be okay, and then going through to the end and having the child living 27 hours and still dying. Um, Being honest, I got mad at God, you
Yeah.
know, and um, I didn't understand why he would allow someone who would love the child, who would teach the child to love him, how he would take him from me. And so it built my faith because everything we go through and everything we endure is a reason behind it.
Mhm.
And at that point in time, I didn't understand, I didn't care. But it wasn't very long after, like a matter of months, when a member in our church went through the same thing. Her baby was born and had a bunch of complications, and she was much younger than I was. And I was able to share with her that you'll get through it, you'll make it. And it's something that I experienced,
Yeah.
and it was that God had trusted me with in order to be able to help somebody else, because you can't tell somebody you'll get through something like that if you've not gone through it.
Mhm.
And so that encouraged and built my faith that even though we don't understand the things that happen when they do, um, that God has a purpose. If that's what we believe and we're children of God, we have to believe that there's a reason behind it and to stand on that. And so he showed me that that was my purpose, to help her with that. And so it makes me stronger as a Christian. It makes me know or trust in God's leadership and where I go and what I do. And even when I'm there, you know, I've shared with many times individuals that maybe didn't care for me to be in a school with them. I'm not here because of you. This is a path God has planned for me. I
Yeah.
am here because he's planned. So it doesn't matter. I'm going to do what he says to do, and he shows me. And so that, I think, has helped to build who I am, my strength and my faith. And when things are hard, when it's a struggle, even now with what we're going through. I mean, I'm not a big technology person,
Yeah.
and um, to have to learn the Google Classrooms and to set up the
Mhm.
lessons and to record the lessons and upload them. Oh my God, I'm just like, oh, but I mean, God has blessed me, and I mean, I'm doing it,
Yeah.
obviously. Maybe a little bit slower than some that are much better, but it's getting done.
Well, Jerry, something that you said there, I think was really powerful that I want to go back to, and that is, in the moment of you going through that pain of losing your son, and that anger towards God right then until you were able to work through that. Do you still, even though that was many years ago, do you ever still find that grief coming back? And you looking at it and just having one of those days where it just hits you harder than others, like the typical grief that people go through sometimes when, like, because and the reason I ask is, I think about, I had an interview the other day with somebody who lost a parent, just like I have. And, we talked about how there's days where it's like, boom, it just hits you out of nowhere. There's somebody says something, to anything like that. Knowing that you had a baby for so many hours before he passed, does that grief come back in the same way sometimes?
Maybe per se, not in the same way. In fact, the hardest it hit me was one Mother's Day. And it was really wild because I totally didn't expect it.
Yeah.
And I found myself grieving because I didn't mother him. I didn't get the chance to be a mother to him, and started wondering what it would be like because he was my only son. And so there are those moments. It doesn't hit me as hard anymore. I constantly, or at different times, wonder often what it would be like, because he would be 2 years older than Alyssa. So he would be 20 in November. And many times I have to deal with it through my girls, because believe it or not, they will have moments when they say they miss their brother. And it's kind of awkward because they didn't get to hold him. The two oldest were there, so they witnessed his birth. But Alyssa, who was born after him, will have moments where she says she misses her brother. And it's like, whoa, But yeah, it comes and goes, because you'll never forget, and there always be something that might remind you of the son going to a football game and seeing somebody be a great football player. You wonder, oh wow, what would my son have been like? But the peace, I guess, is knowing that I knew the purpose. I know the purpose now, and I know that that was what God wanted me to endure, because he needs somebody at all times to be able to witness to someone else how to get through the hard times. You dealing with what you dealt with your mom. Believe it or not, you will be able to tell somebody how you make it through that. And you can say it because you've lived it. Many times people are trying to tell people how to deal with something or how to get over something, and they don't really have a clue because they've not endured it. And that's not your task. Just go on and tell somebody about what and let the people that have endured it witness to the others that need it.
Well, and I think that's really important what you said there, because I think I personally completely agree with you that I think, in our hardest moments, even though we can't see it right then, later you can always look back and go, this moment that I went through is helping me help somebody else. And just like you said, because when you have that personal experience with pain or trauma or anything like that, and then you speak life into someone else from that lens of experience, it speaks to somebody in a whole different way, because they know on some level what I'm feeling, and that is important to me. And so I love that you bring that point up as well. Well, Jerry, one way that I always love to end all of these conversations are, as human beings, we all have something on our heart that weighs more heavily than others. And so to the people listening today, if there was one thing you wish more people knew or understood, what would your one thing be?
What would one thing be that I wish? That there's good and bad in all of us. that no one person knows it all, that we are all in the same room, the room of improvement.
Mhm.
Um, we no matter how well versed we are in some area or the other, we still have room to improve. And I think that if we would, I guess that one biggest thing I say, I always tell people to treat people the way you want to be treated.
Mhm.
And if we did that, then we would give more room for error for others, because we too need that error. And many times we want to, or we expect more of others, or expect
Mhm.
them to behave better, or expect them to do better. And we all have our areas that we can do better uh, and be better at.
I love that. Well, Jerry, you know that I just love and adore you. And so I know this is totally outside your comfort zone to come on something like this. So thank you for sharing some of your stories so openly and vulnerably today for Tell Your Story.
You're welcome. And I love you as well. And you'll always be boss. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you everybody for listening or watching another episode of Tell Your Story. Remember, you can check out all the past episodes on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get it, it's there. I hope today's conversation with Jerry has encouraged you to get out there and tell your story because every story matters.